We put these up to tablecloth. Well, then her hearts are all in it. It was the same one on the box, but they say like if I wanted to do that, like if you put it, you gotta fit it for the entire like. Development. Now you guys can do that. My guys, we had and a 5 our grants. All these work on them, you know. But it was say every word for every song you've ever heard. The other thing. Yeah. Start listening to this. Forget what the more. Our daughter, we decided maybe we put her in a private school. So we introduced Gainesville around 30 some years ago. So we introduced some very school and several other kids. About that, you know, for dad and sees that now. But dad and I are some friends. It's like, can't do this, you can't do that, can't do that. We have live on things. Looking down. Number one. For you not to play your rock and roll. When you pick me up, not just. And then it lasts. Okay. When we're rolling up the school. I think what I have like my Spanish. Sometimes it's like yes. Like all right, guys, who's excited to get organized? Our 19 agent. Miss Layna here, and correct me if I'm saying your name wrong, right? Miss Layna here is kind of like the whole transaction coordination organization, we'll say mastermind behind the scenes of MREA team, Curtin team, right? Yeah. One of our top teams in the market center. She has transactions going out the yin yang, right? Going on in her office, and somehow she stays on top of it and makes sure the team stays on top of it. Right? And it's a balance. It's a balance of caring for our clients, but making sure they get their stuff in on time. So I'm going to hand it off to you. We're a little bit early, so we got about 5-10 more minutes. So you guys want to introduce yourselves, talk about what you want to get out of this class and what you're hoping to achieve with your business. Yeah? Yeah. Hi, everybody. Are all of you new agents? No. Okay. And how many of you have done 20 or more transactions? Okay. So I'm curious from the two of you, what are you hoping to get out of this today? Because you are a little more experienced, you already know kind of how that process goes. So what are you missing that you can benefit from today that I should do it?
Hey, I'm Precious. Mine is just a refresher because presently I have a transactions coordinator and I've had now for 4 years. So I kind of tend to want to know anything.
Forget what they do sometimes.
Forget what I do sometimes when once I get under contract, that's it, Carrie, is all yours.
Yeah.
So I was would like to have a refresher and at least be able to be a second eye, so to speak.
Sure.
So that because she's still human, she may drop the ball every now and then. I wanna be able to say, hey,
Even I do that. But you, what do you want to get out today?
So I really like processing. If I'm given, hey, this is the roadmap, here's what you should take, I am really great at following those, but I'm not great at formulating them on my own. Got it.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else have something different they want to share that they're hoping to get out today? No.
No, well, for me, I'm still in the search to get a transaction coordinator. I feel like I've been on that level where I can't move past it, like after a certain amount of transactions you have, like, you're just like overwhelmed and like, you're just like, okay, I'm done. So I'm burned out. Yep, I want to get like systems in place where like, it's a little bit easier, even if I don't find the person that, you know.
Sure. And it's
And do that
important to
for me.
know your own system so that you can teach the person you are gonna have as your transaction coordinator or your director of operations on your team. This is how I want it done, so that that way you're not doing it down the road when you're in the middle of a transaction.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is, hi, Marty.
Hi.
I was wondering, would this also apply in terms of, like new bills? You know, would that be like a different setup, because there's so much more, Cynthia has been, kind of helping me out with some info over that. And, there's just so much to know, you know.
Yeah.
I
So,
just had a flyer that had, like I went to see a lot, and it's just dirty. God, what am I gonna do?
so some of the processes are the same for new builds, but because the builders tend to take control of the entire transaction.
Yeah.
You have to stay on top of the builder. And a lot of the same processes will apply here based on new construction versus being just focused construction. Looks like we got some people on. All right, so as Raven said, my name is Layna Maye. I'm technically the account manager for the curtain team, so I handle everything from listings all the way through closing, so I do both sides for them. Currently, we have 12 active agents and 1 mega agent on our team who is keeping us super busy right now. But I used to work for 2 ginormous expansion teams before I got recruited over to the current team. It's a very different experience coming from an expansion team into a more centralized boutique type business. But I totally love where I am now because I'm not answering to people in different states who have different processes. So it makes that streamlining a lot easier within our team. Today's agenda, we're just gonna go over the process, what happens during a contract. Everything from inspections to what your closing attorneys do, just kind of a refresher for some of you. We're gonna go over the systems and organization tools that I use and some other transaction coordinators use. We're gonna go over transaction management and timelines and why that's so important to your deals. As most of you know, if you're not on time, there better be an extension somewhere. We're also gonna go over compliance, why it's important for the MCA office to keep you compliant. And we'll just kind of recap with any questions there at the end. Most people are asking, what is contract to close? Real simple definition with a lot behind it. It's a detail-driven process that brings all the parties together to finalize the transaction. And there are a lot of parties in your transaction. Does anybody want to give me just a few? You go under contract, who are you dealing with immediately?
The lender, the attorneys,
Yep.
Inspector.
Yep. So here is everybody who's probably involved in your transaction. And if it's a referral agent or a relocation agent will also be involved. They want to know what's going on every step of the way as well. Members of your team, if they can't be there for somebody because they've gone on vacation, who did they hand it off to? Of course, lenders, you already said, closers and pre-closers. Your pre-closer is going to be your best friend for a long time. And if you're already not working with a trusted attorney's office, get to know their pre-closers, because sometimes if you're missing something, they will actually prompt you because you've got 20 other deals going on. They'll be like, hey, you forgot to give me this, and boom, you're back in your timeline. So before anything goes bad, they're usually on top of it for you.
They do different things than the closer then.
They do. So the pre-closer collects all the amendments, all the commission instructions. They help clear title. They help get title insurance. They make sure that the lender is talking to the attorney. The closer itself does all the balancing with the lender right after they receive clear to close and put all the documents together for that person, the buyer's sign, of course. So successful transaction to close process. Obviously, the transaction closes on time as expected. How many times do you think a transaction actually closes on time and as expected? That's right. So there's always, what I like to tell our clients is, hey, these are our deadlines, but they're moving targets. So we may have this inspection contingency. However, if the inspector finds something that you don't like as the buyer, we can work to get you an extension, to get a quote, to get something else. So, and I always tell them closing as well. It's a moving target. You may not close on your closing day because we don't know what your lender is up to behind the scenes unless we're checking in consistently and they're actually giving us the information that we need. A lot of lenders don't like to give you information until the very last second. The other thing, the process needs to be smooth and painless for all parties. I got a great kudos today from somebody whose listing went live. She actually texted me and said, I just want to thank you for making this as smooth and painless as possible. And I was like, that is what we're here for. So she was really responsive, and I love that about sellers when they are responsive. But I also, every time I email her something, I immediately text her to let her know she has an email and she needs to respond to me within 24 hours. So I set that expectation early on. Same thing once we go into contract, setting those expectations so they know what to expect from you as well. Win future business and reviews. And reviews are kind of the way it is these days. People will check out to see what reviews you have. Did their friend buy a home through you? Was it a positive experience for their friend? Because if not, they're going to tell 10 friends about that bad experience. And also, we want to be compliant. We want to keep you out of check jail and get you paid. So everybody likes to get their money after it closes. So how do we get there? We get there through inspections, we get there through financing, and we get there through your closing attorneys. And all of these things happen within that time frame. Your home inspection. If you're not within the city limits, are you dealing with a well or a septic system? You need to have those done. Do you need a pest inspection? Are there any other inspections that need to happen? Do they need radon testing? Has there been lead-based paint? Is there a disclosure for that? So all those things happen during the inspection period. Then as we move into financing, of course, you need pre-approval versus a pre-qualification. Does anybody know the difference? You do.
So it's they're gathering the information, but it's just a surface search really on their credit and your client's information. once you have the approval, if they've checked everything, they've marked like whatever it is, if the client has whatever thing might have been in their credit, either pay off a credit card or whatever it is, or maybe there was collections or something, all of that gets taken care of, and now you're actually fully approved.
Yes. Perfect. Conditional approvals. There may be something like a holdout, a bankruptcy that was 10 years ago that hasn't fallen off a credit report. That they're trying to get the credit report people to drop off before they go into underwriting. So that's usually a condition, or there was a court order to pay child support from 20 years ago that never fell off a credit report, and the children are already out of the house. They've got to work with the credit report to get that cleaned up. So those things happen as well. Appraisals and appraisal conditions, those are huge, especially with VA and FHA loans. Your appraisal conditions on FHA loans, most of the time the lender does not want to know, but you've got to put it on an amendment. So what are they gonna know? You
Right.
know? And how do you phrase it not to raise a red flag? So that appraiser says, okay, yeah, we'll overlook this thing that you already told me about, but now we've got all these other things. So, and of course, underwriting. Underwriters are not your friend. They're not your
No.
client's friend. They say they want the deal to go, but but they take their time. Closing, of course, we deal with compliance. The attorney has to deal with state law compliance. HOAs, not your friends. Title search, title clearing, title insurance, all these things that are going to protect the buyer and the seller. Settlement balances, funding. So the attorneys and the lawyers hopefully are communicating all these things back and forth, just so you can move that process forward. So, and everything starts with the process. So this is what we use on the curtain team for a process flow. So everything starts once that contract goes binding. I let the buyer and the seller know what this flow is going to be, when they can expect to hear from me, when they get an update. Most of the time, they want a text update when we hit a deadline. So, hey, I know due diligence ends tomorrow. Do you know anything yet? So as soon as I know, you know. So that's what we do.
When you come into play, as soon as the contract is
Since that contract is
accepted,
binding, and I come into play.
and so even the earnest money is still triggered that you collect that as well.
So on our team, our agents collect the earnest money and then copy me on the receipt. Or they have those clients bring that earnest money directly to me so I can get it over here to Lee and get it deposited as soon as possible.
And then everything else is on you.
Everything else
minus
is on me.
negotiation.
Yeah, except for negotiations. The agents do all the negotiating, but they could call me in the field and say, hey, can you write up this amendment for me? We're gonna take $5,000 and put it toward closing costs in lieu of repairs, but never put in lieu of repairs ever.
And
Ever. So I kind of take on the responsibility. If there's something to be written there out in the field, they can't do it, it's time sensitive. Hey, Layna, can you do that? Absolutely, I'll do that for you. And get it over for signature. So I have to monitor when those signatures come in and get them to all parties as well. Obviously, how you can succeed, you gotta stay organized. Different things I'm learning about different people is some people are very paper processed. I'm very digital processed in work, but paper oriented otherwise, which is odd, but it's just the role that I play. So if it's on my digital calendar, I don't forget it because I'm at work, right in front of a computer. Also take personal responsibility for that transaction. Don't assume the other side is doing anything. So I cannot tell you how many times where we're working with a buyer that the selling agent still hasn't contacted the pre-closer. They haven't reached out to the seller to let them know the inspection's been scheduled. It's like we show up on the day of the inspection. Well, nobody told me. So don't assume that they're doing their job. Just do as much of it on both sides as you can, just to protect your client.
I've done it where I actually share, even though I'm representing the seller, where I send it, the contract to the, what's it called, the lender that they have there, even though that's really what they should be doing, their
Yep.
contract, their clients under contract, the attorney too. And if it's not something that is sensitive towards my client, like I CC the agent, that way they know she's not doing an extra job and like, it makes it easier. They know that we're a team, but it's true. Like, don't necessarily-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and we've done the same side. We're working with the seller. I don't trust that that buyer's agent is getting that document over to that attorney, even though they picked them. So I'm doing that for them. It's just a step to let me know that I have a teeny tiny bit of control in what's happening in this process, even though everything else is just like out in the wild. So, also setting those expectations. We work with two really great attorneys. We work with Kermit or Kelly. Her pre-closer and we talk a lot. So I know what's expected of her. She knows what's expected of me. When I first came on board, I had no idea who some of these people were. So I had to start building that rapport just to build that trust factor to know, okay, yeah, I don't have to worry anymore. They're gonna tell me what needs to happen. Over communicate to everybody. One agent on our team, she is fantastic at communicating to her client. Sometimes I beat her to it, sometimes I don't. But it's funny because I may call somebody to give them an update and they'll be like, oh yeah, she's already called me. It's all good. Is there anything else I need to do? Nope, just making sure you got the memo. Because agents get busy, they take a call, they forget to call their client. I'm like the backup or the only response they may get that day. Just because the agent's so busy, she's out showing till 9 or 10. And then by the time she remembers, it's like, oh my God.
You can't contact.
Right,
them.
it's too late. Also, one thing that I do, I'm the problem solver. If a problem arises and I can fix it, I'm doing everything I can to fix it. So, especially in compliance, somebody on the other side forgot to check a box. I go searching for those initials in the box text. So, and sometimes I do get pushback from other agents, but we don't need that. Yeah, well, my broker says we do need that, so I'm gonna need to get those initials. I'll even send it to them if it's too much work for you. And occasionally they will. Go ahead and copy me.
Wow.
Obviously, earnest money, you gotta make sure that earnest money is in on time. One thing I've learned about this office, don't show up at 4 o'clock on a Friday with your earnest money check, because it's gonna be counted late.
Yeah.
You wanna get this check in on a Friday to this office as early as possible. I would say by noon at the latest, because things start to happen around here on Friday where people are in and out of the office. They get sidetracked with other agent duties. They get sidetracked with other NCA offices. So if you have a check in hand, give it to Lee. Sure, it gets deposited.
I like Ernest.
Huh?
Ernest, I like.
Yes,
For time.
Earnest or deposit link.
But
Fantastic.
Ernest, if it's, even though it's deposited that day, after a certain time is cut off, it's counted as the next day. The receipt shows that it is, and if it's on Friday, it will show up, it says
On
until
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah, so
And
it-
if they're turning earnest money in on a Friday,
On a
Friday
Friday.
night or what?
It's
yeah,
usually Friday
it's
after
like-
3 with
Yeah.
Ernest. They'll show up as Monday. first
That's
thing.
Monday transaction, yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
so,
yeah.
Deposit link. And I do recommend Earnest and deposit link versus doing a wire, because a wire will cost you and your client $25
Right.
each. Just to get a wire in here to the MCA office, so save yourself a little bit of money. If a client wants to send a wire, I always have Lee send the wiring instructions versus me. And I set that expectation. It's like, hey, so-and-so told me you wanted to send a wire. I am going to have Lee Fox from the KW office, whose email is, give them the email address. She is going to send you the wiring instructions. Please take that to your bank and make sure you do that within 24 hours of receiving those. So Most of the time, when a wire is there, I want those clients to know that me, the agent, the brokerage, nobody is asking them for any other money outside of closing and that closing attorney. Why? Because wire fraud. They start getting, once they go under contract or even close, they'll start getting scammers all over the place looking for money. So
And the wiring it costs $30, right?
I think when I'm just it used to be 25, correct, yeah. Yep, no later than due date. Send all parties copy of the earnest money receipt. So if I work for the buyer, I want the seller to know it's been turned in on time, so they get the receipt, the attorney gets the receipt, the lender gets the receipt. Because they're gonna ask for it anyway, just might as well give it to everybody at the same time. And for the love of God, please send the check to the other agent without blacking out their routing number and their account number. Your emails are not secure. Somebody could break into your email. Now they have your client's routing number and checking account information. And they can take all the money out of their account. They have this information. So what I like to do if I have a check, is I grab our EM deposit envelope, cover up the routing number and the account number with that. Make a copy of that. That's what they get until I get the NCA office receipt. Hey, it's been turned in. I'm currently waiting for it. You know, it's paid. There's no routing number, no account number. So I feel like I've done a little bit. Just to say.
Same thing with proof of funds to cover the account.
Yeah, same thing with proof of funds. If there's an account number because they've taken it off the internet, black out that account number and just hope for the best. Routing numbers, sometimes they're on there too, so take that out. Yeah, like I said, best practices, no one other than the attorney's office or our office is gonna be asking you for any money. Maybe, yeah, I already went over all of this for you, but yeah. So. Inspection, buyer's agents. Communicate to your buyer the purpose of the inspection and set realistic expectations. How many times have you ever gotten a clean inspection? Everything's perfect. Yep, also communicate with them, hey, if you're gonna pay for this inspection, it's gonna be between, $300, $900, depending on the inspection company and what you have done. If the deal goes south, you're not gonna see that money again. We've gotta make a new inspection on a new house. Kind of put that in their wheelhouse that, hey, let's try to work on everything we can while we can work on it. Make sure the inspection is scheduled within enough time, so the seller has a chance to respond to you. Or if they don't agree with what the inspector said, they have time to go get a quote for something. And then can negotiate that with you. So give them plenty of time. I know 7 days, 10 days, it seems like a long time, but it's not in the world of inspections. Make sure all the needed inspections are ordered. If you have a VA loan and it sits on a septic, you need to write into the contract that the seller is going to pay for that septic inspection and pumping. It's required as part of a VA loan. So, and most VA lenders forget to tell agents that. So until you've done a few, you don't know. Depends on the lender with FHA. Yep. So, some of the bigger companies like Truist, they don't require it, but some of the smaller companies, they'll require that septic and well inspection.
Now, what if it's been like just done? Like when I have clients septic, we do it within 30 days and get the letter and everything included and that's it.
Yep, as long as you have that receipt, you did it, absolutely. If your client is attending the inspection, you should be too. And I know a lot of people hate doing it, but there's one good reason, and I can tell you because this happened on my previous team. The seller is there during the inspection. Buyer shows up without his agent. The agent is now there with the seller. Everybody starts talking. Seller agrees to do some stuff that the buyer hears. and the agent stays silent on the selling side. Well, buyer reports back to his agent and says, well, the seller told me he would fix all this stuff, blah, 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 even though it wasn't on the inspection report. What do you think happened to that deal? It exploded. So, yep, both agents, they fought hard to keep it together, but it became a he said, she said, back and forth, because nobody wanted to pay out. So you just couldn't save it at that point. Also review the inspection report with your buyer. It's confusing. Buyers are looking at this going, am I buying, a money pit? What's happening? Because inspectors sometimes love to scare people. Present the repairs, as credits. A lot of times, if you've got a laundry list of stuff, ask that buyer if they're willing to do the work, if they give them a credit. So, and that'll save a lot of deals. Also ensure that your amendment is signed and bound prior to the end of due diligence. What I'm noticing kind of industry-wide, how many of you use Dotloop? Okay, just you. That little acceptance date at the bottom, if that is not filled in, it's not binding according to Georgia law. So even though Dotloop timestamps the time and date that somebody digitally signed that document, it's not considered binding until that acceptance date is filled in. So kind of keep that in mind. Listing agent, communicate the purpose of why the buyer wants to do an inspection on their house. I know everybody loves the houses that they live in for the most part. So, and just kind of give them some realistic expectations too. You don't have to fix everything that they ask for, but let's make sure we're willing to negotiate some things that come back on this report. Recommend a pre-inspection if they're really concerned about it. Take care of that punch list before it even gets inspected. Make sure the seller grants access for the inspector and any additional vendors. Run into this problem too. The seller's like, no, I'm working from home today. I don't want the inspector to come in. Okay. Had a situation before where vendors needed to come in because the buyers were going to replace carpets and drapes and blinds and that sort of thing, and the seller didn't want to let them in. Do you want to sell your house to us? We're doing this during our due diligence period. This is the only time we really have time to do this, so.
Maybe they would do that during due diligence. Must have been really confident.
Yeah.
You also want to get prices if they're gonna replace how much it's gonna cost them to do all that.
Yeah.
So I've had them where it's like they were.
I thought you meant they were doing the work during.
No, not the work. No, they're just
Getting
vendors quotes.
Yes, they're
and-
quotes and stuff.
Same thing. That the sellers at the inspection, you probably should be too. Always communicate. What is required based on the type of loan the buyer has? Do they have an FHA loan? Do they have a VA loan? What's going to be required of that lender after the VA or FHA appraiser gets out there as well? Always present the buyer's request in a timely manner so the seller has enough time to respond. 24 hours is sometimes not enough time to respond. I have worked with a expansion team who loved wait until the last day of due diligence, around 7 o'clock at night, to hand over their laundry list of stuff from the inspections. Because they knew at that point, the seller either had to sign or kill the deal. But that's how their playbook went as an expansion team. So keep that in
That's
mind.
scary.
Yep. Once the seller signed the amendment, make sure it's returned to the buyer's agent by the end of the due diligence period. I would take the other step and send it to the attorney and the lender as well, because you're gonna need them. Homeowners associations, they're not your friend. As a buyer's agent, always let the buyer know what the HOA governs. Does it take care of the pool, the tennis court, the grounds? What fees that they're gonna have to pay just to initiate being part of that homeowners association? as well as their yearly dues and how those are paid. And what rules that they're gonna have to follow. You can't paint your house certain colors in some neighborhoods. So are they willing to forego having a red door because the white door is becoming red? So these are all things that they need to be aware of. Get the CCRs and bylaws from the listing agent prior to DD ending. Because even though they have them, if they haven't read them, they're not sure what they're agreeing to. And there is no out in the state of Georgia for an agent unless you write it into your contract prior to going live.
What's the last thing you said, sorry?
So there is no due diligence period on HOA docs unless you write it into your contract prior to going binding. Yep. Review those docs with your buyers, obviously, and make sure the attorney orders the HOA letter after DD ends. Because DD is usually where you're gonna fall apart. But you need the HOA letter to come in your next 10, 14, 21 day, whatever your next timeline is. So you'll need to know what fees you're paying. If the current owner has any violations that need to be cleared up prior to you closing, any fees that are still outstanding. I've known a seller who hasn't paid their HOA deal or dues in about 4 years. And now they're trying to sell. What do you think is happening right now? They do have liens. They have liens for, and now title, the closing attorney is trying to clear the title of those liens and promising payment at closing. Yep. But it's messy. Listing agents, secure the CAD, the CCR, the bylaws prior to listing and put them in the docs and MLS. It's super helpful to buyer's agent. And then they can't ever say, well, you never gave me the CCRs. Well, they're in docs and FMLS. I'm pretty sure that's where you got your SPD and your CAD from. So, also, like I said, make sure the HOA fees were current. There's no violations for that seller. Be willing to assist the attorney and the buyer's agent with contacting an HOA. So let me tell you something. So we had been given a CAD. Obviously, we're representing the buyers. It was a very large company that managed multiple HOAs. That person was on a week's vacation. Never left any response on their voicemail, letting us know they're on vacation. Email responder wasn't on. We had no way to contact anybody. So I was working with the seller's agent who wasn't so friendly. And I said, look, we're gonna have to delay closing until we can reach out to this HOA to get this closing letter because the attorney can't get it. I can't get it. Can you help us out? Well, it ended up being the seller who reached out to a friend who knew someone who was previously on the HOA board. And then we got the information. So, yeah. Crazy things happening.
When my clients door knocking in the subdivision to find a member.
Yes. Yep. Who's the HOA president? Nobody knows, okay. Next, you find a contingency from the point of a buyer's agent. Definitely inform the lender, hey, we have a binding contract right now. Yay, because the lender can't start their process without a binding contract. And it amazes me how many people never turn that into the lender. You've got to stay on top of your buyer as well. Make sure that they finish the application process now that they have a number that they're trying to get qualified for. Make sure the lender orders the appraisal. Sometimes you have to stay on top of them because they're working so many other deals. They're like, oh yeah, appraisal contingencies coming up. There is. That order within 24 hours. Always follow up with the lender if you work on the buyer side and pick a lender that you trust. If it's somebody that your buyer came in with, get to know them real quick because they're going to make or break your deal just based on how their internal process is. Also inform all parties when your lender gives you clear to close. Because that's when all the fun stuff starts happening for the seller. They're like, you finally pack up the rest of our stuff and work on finding the garage door opener we haven't had in 5 years. Yeah. Listing agent, ensure if you haven't heard of the appraisal contingencies coming up, you might want to find out when that appraiser's showing up, because if not, it's gonna delay your deal. Follow up with the lender on the status of the loan. Some lenders will only talk to agents. They won't talk to TCs, account managers, anyone else. So a lot of times I have to pretend I'm the agent. And I'll give it. Communicate the appraisal results to the seller. As you know, they won't tell us what that appraisal comes back at. If we work on the buyer side. So at value is a very good thing, because it generally means that appraiser has put it right at the asking point. So you don't have to worry about reducing the price, doing a new amendment, negotiating, whatever's happening. Always follow up on clear close. If you know we're a week out from closing and you don't have clear close yet, why not? What's the holdup? Is it an underwriting issue? Has the buyer not turned in a new pay stub? What's happened? So, you know, like I said, staying on top of the other side sometimes helps your deal get to where it needs to go. Your closing attorney, they do a lot. We like them, they clear title, they order title insurance, they order the HOA letters, they fight with HOA for us. They balance the settlement statement, they receive the closing wires, they disperse the settlement statement. That's how you get paid. So you want to be nice to your closing attorneys, pre-closers and closers. Both agents on both sides, make sure that your buyer seller fills out that information sheet. I'm usually at the end of DD, if they haven't sent that out, I'm poking them. Have you sent out the buyer or seller information sheet yet? Can we get that happening? And then I stay on top of that. They usually copy me. I let the buyer seller know it's there and say, hey, fill this out within 24 hours. And then I follow up in 24 hours. Did you fill that out? Did you get it over to the closing attorney? Because I'm about to call them. You know, so sometimes I'm scared. Make sure the closing attorney ordered title. Sometimes they wait on the lender to tell them to order title. So make sure they've ordered it. Waiting on the lender? Great. Let me call the lender for you. We'll get that order. HOA letter. Don't wait until the last minute to get that either. Did you order the HOA letter when we were out of due diligence? Fantastic. You got nothing to worry about. Also make sure that they have all the amendments, the commission instructions. That's how you get paid. There's any odd acknowledgements, notices, that sort of thing. Also include those. I've seen buyers walk away from the closing table over stupid stuff that came through as a notice from the selling agent. We talked about it, things were great, no problem. At the closing table, they decided, I don't like what they said right there, so I'm not buying the house. Okay, great. So we're losing on this money, we're gonna roll back the deal. Other things happen. Now there's a little lawsuit going on that thankfully I'm not part of. So, and it's not with my team. At closing, buyer's agents make sure that the lender has sent that 3-day closing letter. They know how much money that the attorney is going to ask them to wire. Make sure that you coordinate the final walkthrough. A lot of people like to do it the day of closing. If you've negotiated any repairs, do it a week before closing. Make sure those repairs are done. If you haven't given a timeline in your contract for repairs to happen, like within 3 days of closing, then a week of closing, let's go make sure all the repairs are done, do that walkthrough. And then you can still do one the day of closing, just make sure everything's out of the house. So you can do more than one walkthrough. Yeah, never let the buyer go to a walkthrough by themselves, by the way, ever. Because a lot of times they'll run into the seller, things will be said. Nobody's there to witness what was said. Now we're at the closing table, all awkward, and you're trying to figure out what just happened. Coordinate key.
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. How do you keep them apart? They're there. What do you do? Run interference?
A lot of times you do. So, there's been times where buyers and sellers hated each other so much, we had to request different rooms.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will tell you, like, from personal experience on the closing of our house. I wasn't an agent at the time, but we had, we did the walkthrough. There was still a lot of crap left behind. It was so bad. It was very frustrating when we got there. And then the seller started making comments about something that had happened. So like in the kitchen, the ceiling had fallen off from like, the bathroom, something. We didn't know anything about it. Nothing was disclosed or anything. And we're just like, hey, what? And my agent's looking at us and the other agent, and they're looking at each other because I don't think they knew either. And the husband, I could tell, pinched the wife. And so, but we wanted, like, it was such a good deal, but it was stuff like that you gotta educate your clients and say, hey, like, let's be careful what we share from either side, because the buyer might say is that, oh yeah, I got a great deal, or it appraised higher, and then the seller doesn't want to sell it anymore. So there's a lot of things that you gotta tell your sellers too. It's like, hey, like, let's watch what we're saying. Once you disclose it, you already know, or it's already like, that's not even highlighted. They might have not seen it, and it might have been a big issue to them, so.
I don't even tell them that they're priced higher. I just say.
No, yeah, well, we do, but the clients, the buyers usually see that and they're excited, but they might share and say this is not something. And even now, when we're walking the property, just looking at properties, the initial walkthrough say like, let's be careful what we're saying. We don't know. There's always a ring camera, something.
Yep.
That could kill the deal.
Always.
I had clients that they loved the house, everything was perfect, but they hated the paint. And they made the comment that it was the paint, and the wife was so proud of like her decorating skills that that's the reason why she did it. Yes, she was so offended. The seller's agent said the reason why you guys aren't getting the house, which you're offering more than the other buyers, is because she was so offended that they hated the paint. So, yeah, I'm like, it's
I've
me,
seen-
like, it doesn't matter, they're gonna paint it
Yeah.
anyways, but.
I've seen that exact same thing happen, waiting on closing. Two strangers are hanging out in the lobby. One's talking to the other, they don't know who
They
they
didn't.
are. And one says, oh, are you closing on my house today too? Yeah, well, great, tell me a little bit about the house. And she starts talking about the house, and she's like, well, what? And the buyer said, well, the first thing I'm gonna do is have a painting party because the paint in this house is horrendous. So they call them to go to their closing, guess who's in? And signing and staring. the whole bit.
Actually, I would never thought about that.
Yeah, crazy
But
stuff
thank you
will
for sharing
happen.
that,
Yeah,
because-
yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't notice things. I was in Birmingham when I closed on my first home. And it was the final walk for closing. And head of the construction, he was telling me, oh, did you see like, your backyard? I said, no, I didn't notice. So I go, I said, there is no backyard. And I wasn't even gonna look at it. So we mentioned it, and I said, no, I'm not gonna close on this property. Because I needed a retaining wall, I need a backyard. So I insisted the builder had to spend about $1,000. So the next morning I would go closing the house.
Yeah,
And I didn't know that until he mentioned. it.
yep,
So.
so it benefited you in that case, yeah. Coordinate key, occasionally we have some great buyer's agents who offer to pick up our lockbox for us. Hey, send me the shackle code, I'll go ahead and bring your lockbox closing, fantastic, thanks. A lot of times, if they don't offer to do that, we say, hey, go ahead and take the key out during your final walk. We'll bring the rest of the keys to closing, or we tell them where they can find the keys in the house. So,
And that if they don't, they lose it.
and that is true, or, so this fun instance, it was a combo lock on the front door. And when the seller sold it, the day of closing, they changed the lock and neglected to tell anybody what the lock number was. So, and they did mailway closing. But took 3 days to track down what the new lock was, and there was some compensation paid for not being able to get into the house. So, crazy thing. Be sure to review the settlement statement. Some people, some larger teams have huge transaction fees that they have their sellers pay or their buyers pay, so kind of be aware that it's their side, not your side. Make sure that those right amounts are there. Make sure your commission's correct. I've seen that go awry as well. If there's option money, make sure the option money is showing if it goes toward the purchase price of the house. Seen that happen where they only counted the earnest money, not the option money, even though the box was checked that it was going towards the purchase price of the house. So back and forth, they do it all, of course, during a holiday weekend. So make sure to attend closing with your buyer. Obviously, give your buyer a closing gift. Sucking up to them is the best way to get reviews or referrals. And when they're happy at closing, best time, ask for it. Let me send you a link to our Google review page. Go ahead and do it while we're waiting. So,
Oh, that's a great.
yeah. You're hanging out in the lobby. They're so excited. Hey, let me text you this. Let's take care of that forward. Always ask for referrals. Always. I ask for referrals just about every step of the way from our clients. So if they're busy telling me that they're happy about something, do you mind leaving me a Google review? How about a friend? You have a friend in the neighborhood who's selling? You know somebody who's selling? So I tend to hit them on both sides somewhere during that transaction multiple times. If I feel like somebody is not gonna leave us a good review, I handle that very carefully. And I tend to ask questions about, well, how was your experience? And then if they're honest with me, then I'm gonna be like, great, good thing, let's go ahead and send them a review, ask for a referral. If it's not, like, things out of our control, whatever. But things within our control, well, I felt like you could have contacted me a little more often. You know, that's stuff that I need to work on. That's my feedback. But when they're happy, ask for those because they'll more than likely give you one. And somebody always knows somebody who's buying or selling. Always. It is the oddest thing. Until somebody put that in my brain, it did not compute. And I've been in real estate since 2003. And it took me almost 15 years to figure that out. Somebody said that, oh crap, you're right. Somebody always knows somebody else who's buying.
My friends, they always just say, you know, would you be willing to leave a 5-star review? They ask that first. Are you comfortable leaving a 5-star review? If they're not, they don't have, then they're like,
Yeah.
well, then what I done different, but they only ask the people that are gonna leave 5-star reviews.
Listing agent, communicate expectation on a vacated property. Know what the contract says. What does the contract say about vacating a property? What kind of condition does it need to be in? Room swept, that's all it requires. Room swept, empty of trash and debris. That's it. So let them know. You don't have to hire professional cleaners unless you just want to. Fantastic. Great gift for the buyer and makes you. Utilities, make sure they're scheduled off for the day of closing unless otherwise told. Some counties require the settlement statement to get utilities switched over. Otherwise, utility companies will close out an account, start an account the same day. If there's any delay, obviously the freezer and the refrigerator, it's gonna start leaking over the weekend until it gets turned on Monday. They're trying to move in over the weekend. They have no power, no water, no gas, can't cook, can't have anything. So work with us. Make sure extra keys, garage door openers, key codes, everything, they're either brought to closing, left in the house. I like to tell people if you're gonna leave anything in the house, just put it in a kitchen drawer and let me know which one so I can communicate that. Always attend closing with your seller. Get your seller a closing gift, same thing, reviews or referrals, so important to your business. Recently, an expansion team, so I don't know what you guys really know about expansion teams. Their Google reviews are from all over the country because they're expansion teams. So somebody might have 15,000 good Google reviews, but it's from the 50 different states where that expansion team is doing business. So you might actually lose out because of an expansion team has better reviews than you. So kind of keep in mind who your competition is too and communicate that. Oh, that's an expansion team. You know that most of those are local, right? You might be able to get that local business back. This is what most of you are waiting for. Organization and systems. It's basically one big project management. That's everything that I do. These are the systems that I use. Monday.com. I use Google Calendar. Google Drive, not so much anymore. We've replaced it with Dropbox, Asana, and Trello. I love Monday.com because you can update statuses. It works like a spreadsheet. You can keep track of your GCI. You can keep track of your commission. Everything you do can happen through Monday.com. That calendar, like I said, it's imperative. I put earnest money due date, finance contingency due date, appraisal contingency due date, check-in date. If I haven't heard 72 hours before DD ends, I'm touching the agent saying, hey, we haven't made tech yet, because I know the inspection was done the day after we went live. What are we waiting for? Checklists are huge for me. And they're the key to your success, knowing what to do and when to do it, essentially. You can build your own checklist. You can use one of the ones that I've provided today. Just kind of know in your mind what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, kind of keep a running checklist. Most TCs have their own checklist. They do certain things. My checklist on any transaction is about 119 checks. So we add in a lot of customer service stuff that aren't generally part of the transaction as well. I'm also doing some other things with files, with emails. Just kind of make it your own. Your checklist should answer what needs to be done. That's your compliance. That's everything that needs to happen. That's the main checklist you need right there. Is it compliant? What do you want done? Customize it. Do I want to reach out to the client, 5 days before closing, just to make sure everything's okay? If they heard from the lender and I haven't, have I checked in? Do I need to check in? Also, what can you control in that transaction? There's not a whole lot you can control, but what can you control? And you can build your checklist out that way. These are some examples of past checklists that I've used. Main thing, we're under contract. I've emailed the buyer and I make a phone call, introducing myself to them, letting them know, hey, how's it going? You're gonna be talking to me a lot, probably once a week through the end of this transaction or more. Who do I need to email? The lender, the attorney, the co-list agent. Sometimes I email the HOA. Making sure that Jane Smith is still the HOA president because it's on the CAD. Oh no, she's not here anymore. So these are obviously something you can do. This checklist type, you can build this in Trello. It's really easy to do. Plan your timeline. This is my timeline. This is everything I will look at from the time that contract goes binding. Now we're out of due diligence. What needs to happen 14 days before closing? What needs to happen 7 days before closing? What needs to happen after we closed? There's still stuff that needs to happen just so you can get a check from the brokerage. So plan out your timeline, go backwards, post-closing, 7 days, 14, what all needs to happen for you. Compliance, we're gonna spend a little time here. Command is how everybody stays compliant here in the brokerage, obviously. Does everybody know what the new people who are approving our documents are now doing? So we now have a company that is reviewing our docs and telling us, do this, do this, do this. They leave notes, and a lot of times they don't tell you. They just say, this is wrong, but they don't tell you how to fix it. So now you've got to call Melba or Fiona and say, I don't know what to do here. Luckily, I've been doing this long enough, I can usually figure it out. Oh, yeah, okay, I accidentally missed that, let me fix it. But sometimes they just don't tell you what to do. Don't be afraid to tag them back and ask them what to do.
When did this start?
Last week, I think we all got an email saying that we have a new compliance company that's doing our stuff.
And what would be the benefit of them not letting us know what it is that we've done?
So the company is kind of putting it back onto Fiona and Nova. They're not the ones who review it, obviously, they are the ones who do keep us compliant. But the company itself is doing it, so they may not be licensed. I'm not sure how that company is working out. So they have to refer to Nova or Fiona to say, hey, they tell me that this is wrong. Do I need an amendment or can I do an initial? Tell me how to fix it.
Backward.
So, but they are reviewing and approving things faster than previously, just in the last week or two they've been doing. Always make sure your BBA is signed before you go binding. I know this is a big problem. Sometimes they expire too. If you've been working with somebody for 6 months and you have a 6-month agreement and the day after it expires and now you've gone binding. And now you have to backtrack. So, backtrack. So you either have to add an amendment to the BBA from the date of expiration to a new date, or build a new BBA, and they'll just kind of ding you and say, don't do it again.
That's right. They, I don't know if Alba was here about this,
The affiliated business area, yeah.
If that was signed when you sent out a. She's saying that you said it.
You sign it one time
It
and
is
then
one,
just
yeah.
keep that on file and include it with every contract or purchase and sale that you send out, or just upload it, but they just need to sign it once.
Uploaded and ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
That's okay. And in fact, I'm glad you brought that up because I just learned today that if we had a listing agreement in 2022 and we got that signed in 2022, now we have to have them sign in 2023 one, even though they signed in 2022. So I have lots of people.
So question. Exactly. So that happened to me. Mine expired, but fortunately the new one came out anyway. And I was like, I can just blame it on the new year.
Yeah.
But all of their brochures, everything, that never changed. And so I did not resend all the brochures because I've already sent them. I already have them uploaded. I figured they're.
Yep.
Compliant. Okay.
Okay, yeah. If you have not gotten an email telling you that you have a compliance issue, you're good. I've made it a best practice every week. I go into our pending deals and just kind of see where they are. Is it approved? Is it not approved?
And it's only to whoever you represent,
Correct.
because you said so at some point, the buyer and the seller, I'm like. What?
Should have been buyer or seller.
Yeah.
That is it, because in the past, I would be waiting, and the day before, 2 days before closing, and I would be like, when I have clients, I'm like, what?
Yep. And we've had that happen, we've been closed a week and now you're telling me I'm out of compliance. So trying to track down signatures after you closed. Oh my God.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody cares. They're like, I don't have to talk to you anymore. See ya. The contract itself, one of the biggest things that get missed are that lead-based paint disclosure. And I don't know if any of you have taken Fiona's compliance class, but I took it at the end of last year and I learned that if that box isn't checked, or you don't remedy that box at the time of binding and you get audited, it's $11,000 per signature as your fine. Yes. So all the parties, meaning the buyer and the listing agent, now each have an $11,000 fine.
And then you're talking about the brochure, but they.
In the lead-based paint on the purchase and sale, number 9.
Yeah.
Yep.
Send it, no matter what. They're sending, they're like, but this house was just built 3 years ago. Okay.
Do it in. Yeah, some people do that as a best practice.
Yeah.
Contract amendments, we did talk about putting that little acceptance date down at the bottom. Contract amendments as well, sometimes when you get a compliance kickback, you have to write an amendment. It's the only way to remedy it, because so much time has passed from the time you've gone binding. The only way to remedy it now is by an amendment that everyone agrees on. Usually when I'm searching for a signature, I let them know, hey, our compliance broker kicked this back, totally taking responsibility for it because I'm in charge of paperwork. So could you help me out and go get me a signature? And usually they'll do it. Very little kickback when you say the words compliance broker. So, but you can't get paid if you're out of compliance. Commission, so important to get that over. Is your buyer contributing anything to your commission outside, like a transaction fee or a flat fee? These are super important things that need to go in that commissions tab in command, just so they know how you're gonna get paid. Are you getting a little extra money, from, and how are you dispersing it? Do you have a TC that you're paying out of your commission? Is that on the commission tab? Is that on the commission instructions to the attorney? Oh, transaction coordinator.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
Can you give an example of, I think the buyers do, outside the contract or?
So transaction fees are a big thing that we see. So on a listing agreement or a BBA, whoever, you write in the commission amount, usually 3% on a BBA or 6% on a listing. And then they charge the transaction fee. $5.95 transaction fee or $4.95 transaction coordinator fee, payable to Hello Leverage, whoever. Just so they know, and you've disclosed to the buyer or seller that that fee is also coming outside of the commission payment.
On top of, not including this.
So with a buyer will pay a $5.95 transaction fee outside of the commission that you're already being paid from the other side. So they have to bring an additional $5.95. FHA and VA will not let you charge transaction fees, just so you know. So if you do have a transaction coordinator, it's coming out of your commission on those.
So this is for the transaction, for the coordinator. Or for.
Not always. Sometimes a transaction fee just helps to go cover costs of larger teams. So if they have like a team of VAs that work for them, or if they have multiple TCs, it kind of goes to help pay their salaries. Some people put it into social media marketing. That's, on a listing side, they now have a $5.95 budget to market the listing. So that's what they use it for. Sure.
And sorry, with the commission part, only because I had to try to do this the other day. It would not recognize for a new build, say a road that isn't on that yet, right? So can you just put in the address of wherever the builder's agent located? Or?
So the builder will actually have their own commission form that they're gonna make you sign anyway. Even if you send a GAR form for commission, they're gonna send you back their commission.
Well, that was part of, is there a separate one from the veterans agreement?
Sometimes they include it, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, I mean, what's in there, because it required a signature,
Okay,
but, like, what, in command,
Okay.
when you're trying to fill out that portion for yourself.
in that commission
Yeah.
tab.
That's where I'm like, it's kept coming up red, like. Yeah,
Gotcha,
so,
yeah. So you just put in the percentage amount usually?
but you have to put an address in, so that's where I'm like, what address do I put in?
Yeah. In that note section, before Lee sends you a DA, you usually have access to that note section up at the top, the teeny tiny bar. You can put in, this is a new construction, no address. And she can usually figure it out before she puts your DA together.
Okay.
Best practice for me is to upload all documents and submit no later than 7 days prior to closing for approval. That's assuming I have everything, no random mystery amendments come out. It gives me enough time to start tracking down signatures if something gets kicked back. So, correct any errors if you do get a kickback and resubmit for closing, try to do it prior to closing. In case they kick it back again, because I've had that happen too. We're human, we make mistakes. Just in summary, always protect your client. You're on the buy side, the sell side, always be with them. Never let them be with a buyer or seller or the other agent without you. It just is gonna cause problems in your deal. Always follow your timelines, create those checklists. You know, I gave you a sample, but feel free to email me, call me, let me know, hey, I need help building a checklist. Will you help me? Sure, I'll help you. Stay organized, whether it's digitally or on paper. I know everybody's a little different. There's a girl in our office who works off of both. I never know what calendar she's looking at, what day. Me. Calendar or paper calendar, because I don't have that on my calendar. And obviously we want to get paid. Do everything we can to make sure it's compliant, so we're not sitting in check jail, chasing down an initial and trying to get our money because, you know, we like our money. Anybody have any questions for me? Handle them as we go.
Question about the gifts. You said that you gave the seller also, you give the buyer and the seller,
We do.
even if the seller obviously is represented by.
No, so if we represent the seller, we give them a closing gift. If we represent the buyer, we give them a closing gift.
Oh, yes, okay, good, good, okay, I was
Yeah.
confused about that, I said, wow, okay.
Yeah, and some of the agents on our team, when they're out of due diligence, they send a coffee card. Hey, we're out of due diligence, go have a cup of coffee. You know, it's just a little something to kind of keep that communication line open.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. We have some agents that just go above and beyond. They will sit there and wait for vendors for their buyers all day long. And I'm like, what do you do? So, but that's part of their customer service, you know, it's their business, let them run it the way they run it. I just keep them compliant. For the programs that I use, Monday, Trello, Asana, they all have free versions that actually work for small checklists, non-teams, things like that. So they're fun to play with. On Trello, so you can move it in a timeline, just like our timeline.
I've never heard of
So,
Thank you, I appreciate it. Close a little.
Yeah, because I want to start on presence, what needs to get, or what has worked for you and what really makes an impact on your.
So closing gifts for buyers, and this has been the same for every team I've been on. They make these really nice cutting boards. They usually have them imprinted with the team logo. One team that I had Georgia on one side, state of Georgia on one side, and the team logo on the other side. You could flip it.
You use that every day in your kitchen.
Right, buyers love it. Yeah. So sellers, especially if like they're moving, a lot of times it's real simple, champagne glasses and some champagne. Let's toast your clothing, you're moving, you can't take this on the plane, so.
so you do those on the day of closing, or how do you do it?
Yep, day of closing.
So it's with the attorney's office waiting.
Yes.
And is it even on your behalf as a team, as or on the agent's behalf?
So originally it used to be on the team's behalf, and we have changed that. The agents like to be a little more personal now. So we basically give them a starting point.
you know, a basket, a bag, what size do you need? And then the agent, based on all the conversations that they've had started filling it up with goodies, you know, a toy truck for the kid who wanted a yellow truck for the backyard, and that's over there. And little special things, you know, lady was obsessed with cleaning supplies, whole cleaning basket. So, yeah.
Thanks, okay, yes, thank you. If you get me from ideas, especially the closing gigs things.
Yeah.
Because, I tend to carry all of that and I'm thinking, what am I giving them? What am I giving them? And the box is hard, to figure out. Yeah.
So they were going to teach that class, they are gonna be an answer.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how. They will do private meetings, whereas on next phone. Is it free? It's not. Really, there's like. And charge. Like that, if you were wired. Internet, we just have. And can you do any amount with deposit link, or it's like earnest, it goes up to what, 15,000? And then.
It's not.
So with deposit link, you can actually break that up. So you can do their limit and then do a second one. So then you're gonna be in between,
Or, I mean, link together.
Trying to figure
And
out.
you
which
can do
one I
option
was
money
considering, because I
on
really
that as well.
Yeah.
That's like you can. I have not seen it on.
It's like right that we can-
That is probably a better.
West. So my house facing the toilet.
Yeah, there's only been one time where they checked out and with tremendous money. But I think, I mean, and that's the other thing is like, the other side, if I'm looking at that, the other side is sending me a copy of the check. Several of them look like they were funded one to one, and that would be just keeping that. Just all the time, and you know, seeing if they could get a contract, they didn't want to keep reissuing and they were allowed to do that.
So we're not.
Right.
So if the attorney has something on his money, they don't have to return it or didn't get their provider. Okay, so they can apply.
They can keep using the same picture.
Oh,
Okay. It depends on the attorney. Whatever, you know, like, they're not holding that, you know, that there is always a part of it. Okay. But we do not, it's per transaction, so if that transaction doesn't work out, then we turn it in again on the next thing. Yeah, okay.
No, not really, yeah.
I don't really send her an email.
So. How are you doing on the?
So. That's the part where I'm like, this part gets tricky, and there are, you know, we put an encouragement, but we actually like. But I should go ahead and. Rather move on here. Sure, it's Friday, why not? It's Friday at 4, yeah. Yes. I'm really anal about timelines, and so that's what this always makes me more stressed out. Because I want to come out, yeah, and nobody else runs on that, right? And then I come off like on some, I'm not even type A, I swear I'm not, but I come off like I'm a nut job as a listing agent to, or a buyer's agent to the other side. They're like,
Yeah.
relax, for they get into you, and I'm like, okay, but we, you know, like we went under 2 hours ago, why are you on this?
Their advantage from negotiation. I don't mind them, but I don't like to.
So.
We're not due diligence. 48 hours ago, we're not required to do anything. You never turned it in, you never signed an extension.
It feels so unhealthy.
It does.
And it can ruin the deal. It will, and that sours it for my clients.
Who have now lost their
That sounds like an benefit.
Right, yeah, but they do it. It's.
When you say expansion, you're referring to like the teams that are, like not, I'm not saying this is you're talking about, but like a team, like a Marks Real Estate that operate in every state. That's like,
Oh, I'm sorry.
or most.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay, I find that.
I had to issue got me like super painful because it was a lot of investors. I just want to leave keys on the property. I had it's an hour away, hour and 5 minutes away. I'm like, is there anyone gonna be at closing for your side? It's like, no, we're in Florida. And I'm like, can I mail it to you? Anything? It's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, all right, well, I'll be enjoying a nice drive out to Dallas for my morning.
Well, you can, yeah, and don't forget to utilize the evaluations like that.
Oh.
They have fun.
So we can have like this, right? But just like this.
Running out the first very whenever. They do.
Yeah, that costs more gas. than anything else can just.
I would keep them more, not the thing, and getting out, like, people building.
Yeah, I mean, there's an office right down the road.
Maybe that I
I can't remember which of the Williams office it is, but I'm gonna show you here.
you know.
Yeah, I should have done that. I didn't even think about it, and it was honestly the day before closing, or it might have even been the morning, I realized I didn't. leave the keys.
And
Yeah. Didn't bring out. I did have questions. I'm trying to figure out which one it was. Okay. On the inspections part, the buyer's agent review the inspection for the buyer, present the repair and credit request in enough time to seller respond. Yeah, I do have it.
Yeah.
So when you said present as credits, are you meaning like, you'll, for 2000 was costs? Is that what you're talking about?
And we said it is closing costs. You won't ask for these things, but we want that. If you give us the 2,000, you divide that, it's like closing costs.
Yeah, a lot of it,
Some of these issues, like the lender ended up finding out, like it wasn't from me, it was from the other side, sending over a document, and I was like, head on the table. It's just not. And of course, I had to, a lender explain the situation, I'm like, it's mold, welcome to Georgia, it's our state flower, why is this just a surprise? But it was really frustrating. I learned, that was a really, I learned a lot. I honestly, Melba knows me, she's like, we can find another one, such a short years when I was in such terrible.
It's like when they roll, a bunch of them hit at once. We have like 5 crazies all at once and then it calms down for a little bit. I mean, here they come again.
I must be putting out, like, there's something that is. Really don't. So, but I, you know, we're getting. Okay, well, this has been really, really helpful, just so it's thrown in.
But I looked at it.
Okay.
I know.
Because you can build out and, you know, and he's been going out to build out your timeline and update that.
Okay, and you put your dates in there, everything. It's hard, because I love drop downs, in fact, when I signed up for the technology, group here as part of the AOC. I went into the technology group. I think this is for me. I like flow charts, the things that work in my mind, flow charts. Step by step, right, and I just don't understand why our technology does not have this already done. In that you can simply, I feel like for every agent in our office, there should be some kind of like, click on that, and then the three options immediately appear as a flow chart. Ta-da! Yes.
And I can get the full effect of it on my phones.
Because I've never, a chance. So he didn't see my, he just checked it.
And I think that was, I guess, in the comment, but. Running and moving and different, things, like 18, right? I have to. So like. You know. So.
And, agent, no, I checked on, Laura, if you think that I was just a child, so I was like, I checked those two days, if I was using the check. And then there's like, all that, follow all the contract details, you know, so I want to, leaving the last of the students, like, I can build you, receive, requested, you think, wire bills.
Send that email immediately, you just click that.
It doesn't send an email immediately, but it lets me know where I am each day. So I left and Lisa's telling me, hey, Ian is due on September 1st, and I requested it on today is August 30th. So who am I getting on to get a copy of that? Wow. D said that put in the agreement extended, what's happening on things, no. And I filled all of these out just based on my appraisal. We used to do, they go to my formats and put the family name on them and how did I order them? Then you make this contract.
See, and I would love just to know where your headings are at, just to reach out, kind of align, exactly like.
And,
See, and I'm trying to be, we are very. And you have to do this for all agents now. Because we're teams, I essentially put them all in one spreadsheet.
something
And
to work on, you know, whether he doesn't want us to.
Yeah, like actually, with their pay clothes, that you would, you know,
She did
check
that.
with me about.
Important.
It's great. Some of our agents, you always go in.
I mean, I don't know.
You know, I just, because that's how I was. She didn't ever push back. I'm sorry. Sometimes, not always like that, but some of them have seen it enough.
My experience is.
Or they said, what should
It's just practical, right?
But salary as part of the level of service. So if you can't reach me, you can.
I did.
I can't follow my information, I'll never just, so it's right here at my fingertips, I'm trying to track on.
No.
Right now, no, this was the previous game I was on.
Oh, okay.
So we use Otonia's and we use Current a lot, and then for our luxury listings as well as we use. Wow.
So I was that person's amazing.
Yeah, see, this is like, I used to. Shooting up, I would, show you some things. There is a guy on YouTube.
That's channel called. And he's been very supportive, like, when I was,
He goes through a lot of product production. Yeah. He's the one who actually.
Yeah, no, I'm shallow.
I used to know, but you know, I haven't been told here. I used to
And
sign,
now I have to retract and put in another thing about the.
which is good, but like you said, there's some very. And I'm trying to my needs now, so I broke down to all the stages. To deal with them, you know, finally,
But right now, it's like, you know, that's 70-something%.
So I break it down. So when I just move the card over, checklist, will actually populate for me,
Money,
and I can just
make you
I
money.
can do all these. If you're representing,
Right, but I am, you know, it's.
if you're representing the buyer and you
I
don't
was
turn
rolling
in
the buyer.
the earnest money doesn't get turned in on time. But they don't catch it, you still turn it in, even though you don't have to. Alright, cause they're, I'm telling you, this one of the reasons I like all brothers. Our training committee sits down and say,
Okay.
here are the little things that I need to watch out for. And he would look for ways to legally and scam other agents on the other side. And I was sitting there like, I cannot believe I'm sitting there screaming and Raven is a girl here. She's a nurse, so she said, ABC, literally just talking about me.
Yes.
Still, yeah, legally. She got off me very much. Well, they're, yes, they want it to close, but they're not gonna give an inch to the other side. That's what I love. But then I think it's kind of a reputation. He's recommending on the other side, like, I'll go ahead, the next one's down there. They can't figure it out. I would write. That's fantastic. Do you like time? And it's. I'm gonna share my one. Joanne is very. Oh my God. Yeah. And Tom is very analytical and very, you know, really likes to know where.
Yeah.
But Tom is.
Yeah.
Just
Oh my God.
make sure I have all.
I didn't know that.
I like, my husband and I know them, from school, our kids go to school together, and then we've gone out to dinner with them. Which is really funny to watch, dinner days, you know? And. Ready to be done, it's like, it's pretty funny. Yeah, they seem like they're completely yin yang kind of situation. That's why I'm kind of, she's working. I may have seen anybody kind of command the room. She does. Right, us. You know, it's, and the energy is great, and then she will share everything she knows. And I mean, when I first came here, they were like, she learned her hands. Like,
Now,
I'm still not on the team. Well, I mean, you was still not, and I really, and I told, I don't know, you told me so. And the reason is I can't leverage on my own time right now. Because my kids are in those situations in season of life where they think higher from me. And it would not be fair to. I have been counting on me.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna.
Yeah. So she's, I don't use, she used to,
I don't think in terms of the other way of you letting me down, because I can see that you wouldn't, but I'm protecting you. Or.
look at it and put you in all, where you know, all part of it. It makes, it makes.
Have you done it? I'm sure there is a lot of, like what, everything you just said. To be like, if there's a contract. We'll come to it. She. I've never seen anything like her. She's one of these people that you talk to somebody about her with you. Oh, I mean, you're so nice.
You know, like she's crazy, you know.
And we must. We don't thank you, very. Yeah. Very. So she controls that expectation. She had me bring on
And you can talk.
that she's running interference.
Oh, it makes things.
But. And it has to be related, it's supposed to be the assumption, you know, the work, you know, who's gonna do that.
And then the jets go on, and you put your thumb on the jets off. And you just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somewhere in my marketing brochure. So when I showed up, like I showed up, I was not going to do that. So we had to reverse a little bit of like variation of the word. Brochure from marketing.
But, you know, like.
But he thought, why would not?
Initially thought, well, you're like, how the body is.
Right, but better. So, yeah, but, you know, I was cold.
Then I did wire darts.
So words were. And expectations are very different.
Yeah.
But this is what this word means, what appropriation use.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can say, how could I live with that grace? Yeah. And I obviously get all the rest of it, and sometimes they have to do that, and I'm like, no, you don't know what that one is. Yeah, the terror. And then.
He like, you know, it's good.
She had people write.
No,
They said,
Yeah.
I'm serious, don't like it, it's not flowery. So she'll have, you know, but.
And I don't.
It's just for like a year long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
They like that.
Yeah.
They know nothing. You know what I do when I'm doing my walk through with them, like I know
That's my. Yeah.
when I do my walk.
Yeah.
So I get them to describe all the different things I walk through and I jot down the word that they starts to see maybe we know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, she used the word light airy, so that's obviously, those are adjectives that are very important to her. And so I'll just start them and then in my listening description, I will use the words that she used, or I'll, you know, figure out a synonym for that, and then they seem to be happy. You totally have to be help because reach out. I market center for that.
Am I even you know?
Hungry, I am very interested. Yes, I've been talking around. I don't know, yeah.
Just new to this, yes.
I'm new to real estate.
Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is.
It's welcome. I love that. You're local?
Yeah.
I was- Yeah. And that's what's.
Oh, yeah. That's very collaborative, like sharing like that. It's so funny. I was telling another agent, I'm like, you know, take pictures and screenshot their slide decks, and everything like that.
I'm sorry, I have to. Nice meeting you too. Bye bye.
But I was. They love you. Just mostly for the kids, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And, but that is good, but yeah. The words that they walk through, or whatever. So I get my. Thank you so much. This was really helpful. But like I said, I'm not great at grading that, but I'm great at.
Yeah, somebody else said to me once, well, if you could just make a template and sell me that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I was like, I can do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I will keep that in mind too. I think I'll build them and send them out to you just for, that would be fantastic. I'm hoping to grow. And figure out. Right now, I just need. I even told one of the girls, I'm like, she built herself a whiteboard, you know, with all of the categories. So, yep. What?
yeah, and that's essentially what Monday is, the whiteboard.
That's great. I love that.
A whiteboard with
Nice thing
status
to-
update.
Digital, has to do with my kids. And I do some, I mean, I have to do some good stuff digitally with real estate. I really like taking notes. I'm not good at digital notes. I love handwritten notes. So I don't know what that says. Thank you so much again. Oh, and I'm Sarah. Sarah Bullard. Nice to meet you. I'm thinking about it this way. Bye. And I'm like, are you gonna go over this?
Thank you.
Take care.
I think it's obvious that it's underlined. I wouldn't need it to because. That's amazing. Going on. Having the border. Yeah, because.
When that deadline got.
Exactly. It's better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard this family needs
So much, so much going.
ever so open to kind of go through.
Yeah.
So what I needed from her, I needed was. If you look at it, I assume that I look at that emails every day. You know, I mentally I remember.
No, I.
How kind of,
Really, sometimes I'm like.
tomorrow, you know? something like that.
No, I am. But you. Like, you can't, whatever, it's Sunday.
Finance maintenance, you know, 2 days, things like that, and otherwise, and, you know, the list of
So I tried
utilities,
it as my first.
the previous,
And.
homeowners, that was one thing that she wasn't doing recently, but I realized that a lot of.
Oh, that's normal. I'm like, oh, I understand it, you know?
Yeah, but I'm that's,
Yeah, I print it and I don't know how to, like, like, this bag is a reflection of my. And then like. Hey, I do, I have a spare time while, usually I'm done that. I just wanted to, this is my current, I'm gonna be at least part of the day. And after hours, I've been all, there's all 24 hours. I'm like, an agent. I think I'm still ordering, we don't.
So, when I'm doing. From my units. They're not getting this.
My story is. You know, yeah, no, I mean, I went through like. Oh my God. So it's like. And so it's not like, I didn't go and evaluate all the people, it's that, and you see it, see the pattern. And I. Very. And it's.
Absolutely.
And later, I know she has that really higher, right? So he was working.
They're really kind of taking off that time.
Yeah.
Is now. So I told her, you know, I mean, I love you, I'm like, you know, it's, like we used to.
Right.
That baby.
Exactly, yeah, I work this weird time right now, so the contracts could be like that for a week, and then all of a sudden I'll show up on Monday, I have 6. But then I'm like, wow, what, you know, we got all of that.
Yeah.
Going on in that. It's a good year.
What's so good you do for her? Yes, it is.
We're grateful.
Like, my family.
God bless you.
Yes, it was, I mean, I got so much from it.
Oh, good.
Let me tell you.
I know.
Yeah. Favorite solution, yeah. Like, yeah. Yeah.
So our team had 595. So, but I get most. So my team paid out of there. So they're out of the and then our team does. So they need me. It's not like that. Occasionally we will, but I think we'll be like 35 years.
That's great, and I'm just. I'm almost like, I'm grateful that I am in this position, because I have to open the thing, that part of that also is like divide, where I'm not able to cheat. And that's generally the cheat, I think, is not sugar confidence. But it's like I have to, and we have to like do that. So, all my life, it's just a position of usually kind of read your test.
Around it and just write that down.
That's how the difference is, you know, I was here for that, you know, but I don't, but then, and I usually have to value money, I don't know. And she's so big. Hey, so we just,
Whatever, like hello lovers and meeting or signal and and then
There's a building plan.
instructions.
Massive.
That 3%.
Yeah. It's not like it's so different, you know, and it's sometimes. You know? That's what I'm like. Yeah. No, it's not. It's just. It's different. No, and I get it. Like I get this crazy because where, you know. And. See ya. Yeah.
Okay.
Breathe in. You get married again though. No, you were already married. Oh.
So. This, today I'm sitting. I'm going. You know, that's it.
And I was feel over when I had in houses, I was with my mother in the afternoon. And with something, we went to Costco. Okay, she's so kind. I mean, like, that's the one thing great. We didn't give her that, to be close to that home. Because for a long time, we're moving, I don't know, well, I was like, Hawaii, I'm like, freaking job are we gonna get in Hawaii, you know? Awesome. I know. Give me a boo? Or- Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Great, I mean, like, you know.
So she's coming. Why you like, she's pretty much a real girl.
My whole conversation, I've actually never been to this kind of place, you know. Oh, yeah, I definitely live with the, you know, 10 in San Francisco, never went to Mexico once. Been in New York? Oh. That's, yeah, I went to Central College in the Bay Area, in Palo Alto, for San Francisco, and then I went to, that's. Yeah, oh, sweet.
And the thing that I didn't know.
Yeah. Shut the hell up.
So.
Yeah.
You know, I got red roses at the house right now, on the day, on the, face, like he's not running his school and everything. But you got it, shut that out.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. By yourself. That's kind of a lot of self-discovery, right? And so down here, yeah, okay.
So I got settled for the second time. So. I think I had hot news on it.
Yeah.
So we went over.
Good at that.
Yeah, of course she did.
Yeah.
I should be.
Right, yeah.
So in.
Yeah, you have to, what's called community to get to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she didn't get it out from. Hi.
Yeah. Like any clever girl would do. Wow.
And I met him. It's all we did say. Right, it's in the house. You know, see what it's doing. I wasn't really thinking that was.
Yeah.
Never had.
Well, that's when you first, you know. it's good.
Right. Everything happens. But this is what you. I'm tired of telling people, hold on, why?
Mhm.
No, this can't say. This is what I'll baptize. One part, that's why. Oh. Because I'm about this problem, this is. And I'm still. Amen.
Cause you were the one who did it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you can out. Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. You're like, we're gonna what?
You know, there is something I heard going like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, it's still.
Not. You're gonna be here forever anyway, yeah.
You must be for all the damn before you know, yeah, of course.
So interesting, yes, this is our, so, you know, on a double check, remember when I was in the book at night, one of my best friends passed away. So she was in Sydney, and her and her ex-boyfriend, who, is my husband's like childhood summer school friend, you know, we grew up together in the East Coast. They all went to school in Boston together. And they had wanted, when they were a couple, they've always wanted to introduce my husband to me. Okay. And Michelle and I moved back, you know, she moved back to New York, I moved back from San Francisco, back to Singapore for like 4 years. And we were literally like within each other partying and staying within a month.
Okay.
So, at some point, you know, I was still like on and off San Francisco, and then, like, I think I'm gonna go back to try again, and they would do Singapore visiting. No, you know, we've been trying to set you up with Eugene for like 5 years, I'm like, I'm in Singapore now, and, you know, with someone, it wasn't, and there'll be so many like trips, like, you know, like a usual group of friends, but I was always distant because they were always East Coast, I was West Coast, they went to England, I was in Australia, I mean, like, my childhood friends, you know? And, so we kind of called him, and we started talking, and then we started talking more and more and more, and then long story short, within like, I think it was also timing, at the time we were both like 30, 32, 33, you know, we just kind of knew, like, so all the things that your last person was.
Yeah.
He filled in the gap, right?
Right.
And all things you didn't think that you want. And I had never been out with a fully Asian guy. My ex was a brother. Okay. Yeah. Ex-fiance, okay. And, so it's kind of interesting, like, I had made that decision, like, we felt so solely connected that basically quit my job in Singapore. I bought a lot. So not a lot of things, but you know, I bought a ticket to New York, I told my parents. And he came for, to meet me in Singapore first. Yeah, and yeah, then we started our lives like 14 years ago, when we aren't. Yeah, when we got married. And it was purely like almost like a visa thing, because like financially, I kind of go going back and forth, but I knew I was gonna, obviously I was gonna marry this guy, just like he gave a job and whatever, my life in Singapore. And, yeah, so we just did it, we just jumped, you know, but because we jumped also, there's a lot of stuff we're making up for later. I mean, we didn't have 4 years after together and, you know, so we're, yeah, this is a different kind of soul, you know, and so come through so much, and it's funny, like thinking back to our, you know, the little moments that what's top of my daughter was a baby, and I just want to go stepping up, you know, like I would have left it at his ass if I had money, you know, but so it's kind of a blessing, you know, because, and also my perseverance of like, sometimes the marriage, you know, trying to live together, like work through it, and we're so much in a better place, especially after moving out here, you know, that I don't find excuses to forgive my girlfriends when things are wrong. You know, I just face things head on, and I'm very honest with them. It sucks that you're not doing this or whatever, and it's not perfect, but you know, that's why a lot of the work on all of this is a lot of self-reflection, so, you know, and also looking at myself and identifying like, okay, well, you know, I want to be here and I'm gonna be here, but I'm on my way. I'm doing it, you know. Yeah, 1% more. Every day.
But when you met, you know, I mean, what, and you have someone.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, oh.
Yeah, right,
And.
yeah, right, yeah,
So I have to pay my tuition.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and I love it, by the way, I do share the direction you're going, I haven't, you know, I haven't nailed down what it is, the area, my interest, right now, I'll be like, every area is like there, you know, like my little, like, looking for any, even then, I'm like, oh, but one of the things that really resonated with me after my mom had passed, and I, in Singapore, was going around my dad, because I was like petrified my brother was taken, I'm trying to figure out, like, is he gonna live? Like, do I have to move back? And then my husband, who is not even Singaporean, like, how hard is it for him to get a visa and work in Asia? Or it's not that easy. That's, you know, maybe it's a different story about some different part of Asia, but Singapore is especially tight. And I was distracting, and my dad's coming with me to look at these things, and they're so sad. And now I'm faced again with my brother, basically texting me, like, if you don't come out sometime for a month at least between April and July, we have to send dad to home facility while the helper is back in the Philippines, you know? I said, okay, and yeah, so, you know, it's another like couple of grand, and you know, I've been going back, I think since 2018, I have gone back about 9 times for at least a month on end, you know, to take care of them. And it's just been, you know, I don't have that kind of fun, like sucked up. So whatever I had from my mom and all gone, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
there's a problem. So I'm having that one. There's always maybe, but it's something, yeah, and I'm long. Also, yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
So, after the incident, and so you months, you know, I've been sort of for
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
So I've seen the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry for the worst, but when people. The months, for people.
Yeah.
Are not. Yeah. It's.
Yeah.
And with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't. You don't have that one line as you want.
Yeah.
And I don't have this. And I want to.
Not so much, you know. Yeah.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, what you making? Oh, thanks for sharing, that's so nice. Nice. Yeah. But you don't even need. That's why you look so good. Yeah.
So you know what cracks me up is these, my reservation sign, I don't know what people take them, I don't, and I have to get more, a bit more. Oh, I'm stealing. Look, lollipop.
No.
Okay, you know what, Miss Michael and Ray, they were so adorable, they came, it's the ALC retreat.
Yeah.
They came and they made a little, you know, goodie bag, it was a bag that had their stuff in it. What was in it? Hangover stuff. Like,
Vitamin packs.
yeah, like
Band-Aids.
hydration
Yeah.
pack, and so.
Yeah,
The
you
next
said-
day, and I go, the sister thing, I didn't have to take, I take it out, the sister, I go, I totally need the alcohol.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah, so I told her, I go, this would be the most brilliant thing you've ever done. Okay, so kind of,
That for?
it, when I have, come in, I stand on the spot,
Yeah,
so that they were all, 9 of them. Yeah. I did not reserve you a spot when you came, I'm really sorry,
Yeah,
you
thanks.
came as a guest. I think I just,
Whatever.
I'm in the volume model now. So I'm sitting there going, well, you might as well just go come at the same time. I lost a lot of them because they got what, you know, kind of, can you imagine? You're not, some of them were licensed, some of them were coming from other brokerages.
Oh.
But can you imagine, all of a sudden it turned into a trade show? That's what it was like, right?
Yeah.
And like, they're
Oh,
going,
we came to different meeting where.
so I'm like trying to hurt them, it's like, oh, no. You guys going to the awards tonight or whatever?
No, that's on next Friday. I have a question actually. Can I bring a friend? Yeah. Not my partner. It's like the babysit. So my girlfriend, her daughter, and my daughter are all friends, and they're here from New York. So I was wondering if I could,
Call it a recruit.
she's an architect. Oh. Okay, not to say it. Okay, she's here from New York.
You know what? There you go.
There, she's your plus one.
Christmas party?
No, I wasn't around. Yeah.
So I came, I brought my boyfriend Steve.
Uh-huh.
God love him, okay, cause partly through the night, he could tell I wasn't gonna be. It was such a great time. Cynthia was like, Kara, I mean, they never sat down.
Oh my God.
Here's with the DJ, I don't know if he's the DJ in this one, but it was so fun.
Oh.
Steve, and Anne lives down the street from me, so Anne goes, I'll just give you, I'll Uber home, I'll just get.
Yeah.
And he'll give you a ride home, but he didn't care, he gets it, right? When it's
Yeah.
not, when it's your significant other's work thing,
Yeah,
you have to let them do the work,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you're not there to be, you know, my late husband, he would have been pouty, you know, what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, are you gonna use me? No, I'm not.
My husband would be like, like, okay, bye.
Take him home, yeah, give him a bath.
Yeah.
Go have pizza.
No, I'm always at, for sure, the.
Cynthia-
One more drink. Yeah.
And then came and picked her up like.
Oh, that's sweet. He wins the award, for sure.
Right.
It's like, I know you're always on our call.
Yeah. It's Tuesday. I don't know, I mean, some.
Is she in it?
Yeah, she's in there right now.
What's the
I was just gonna, well, she's on like a call.
Oh, it's on the Zoom call.
Yeah.
Why don't you text her and see if she was.
I did a minute ago. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know you in?
Yeah, because that's, you know what, I think she has group calls on a
Yeah.
Tuesday, not with ours, but
Yeah.
maybe with a different one.
Gotcha.
Because I think I have on a Tuesday tried to talk
To
to
reach
her.
her?
and she was busy, yeah.
Okay.
I never tried,
Maybe see her for like 5 minutes.
Hang out, no, totally. Everybody, this is like, this is where I would hang out. Either that or better, yeah.
I will.
I think.
I said I don't know. I don't know. No, I'm gonna be gone like whole weekend, like it wants to be bowling or something, right? You don't have to, so it was like. The anniversary, which is also like our. Preheater, I was just like, wait.
My name's Haley, who am I speaking with? David. Okay. I am not sure. I'm from the Birmingham area. No.
of God,